Defiance of stars. The Defiance wasn't much to look at. A patchwork vessel cobbled together from 3 different salvage operations, sporting mismatched hull plating and systems that occasionally talked to each other when they felt like it. But to Captain Alina Reeves, it was the most beautiful ship in the galaxy, because it was hers. Status report. Alina called out, her voice carrying across the compact bridge. She ran a hand through her short auburn hair, the faint scar across her right cheek catching the light as she moved. Lieutenant Marcus Chen glanced up from his console, dark eyes reflecting the holographic readouts dancing before him. "We're holding stable at the edge of the void zone, Captain. Engines at 70% capacity, which is honestly better than I expected." "Don't jinx us," muttered Chief Engineer Dahlia Okoro from the rear station. Her fingers flew across the engineering interface, making minute adjustments that kept the Defiance from shaking itself apart. "I've got the containment field patched with bubble gum and optimism." Alina allowed herself a slight smile. Her crew wasn't military, not anymore. After the Treaty of Proxima, the United Earth government had decommissioned half its fleet, leaving thousands of trained personnel without purpose. Some adapted to civilian life. Others, like Alina and her crew, found different ways to survive. "I'm picking up something strange," called out Serena Novak, their sensors officer. The lanky woman leaned forward, her brow furrowed in concentration. "It's faint, but definitely artificial, coming from deep in the void zone." The bridge fell silent. The void zone was uncharted territory, a vast region of space deliberately avoided by every species in the Galactic Concord. Rumors spoke of strange phenomena, ships disappearing, and laws of physics being merely polite suggestions. "Is it a distress signal?" Alina asked, moving to stand behind Serena. "I think so. Not in any format I recognize, but the pattern repeats every 12 seconds. That's universal distress protocol." Alina tapped her fingers against her thigh, a nervous habit she'd never managed to break. "Put it on audio." The sound that filled the bridge was haunting, a series of melodic tones that somehow conveyed desperation despite their beauty. It made the hair on Alina's arms stand on end. "Opinions?" Alina asked, looking around at her crew. Dahlia was the first to speak. "We're not equipped for a rescue mission in uncharted space, Captain. The Defiance is barely holding together as it is." "Agreed," said Marcus. "Plus, the Concord explicitly banned entry to the void zone. If we cross that line, we're operating outside the law." Alina raised an eyebrow. "Wouldn't be the first time." "But this would be different," Marcus insisted. "This isn't smuggling supplies to fringe colonies or evading corporate tariffs. Nobody goes into the void zone." "Somebody did," Alina replied, gesturing toward the source of the signal. "And now they need help." Serena looked up from her console. "Captain, I've isolated the signal source. It's approximately 6 hours at our current maximum sustainable speed, which would leave us with minimal reserve power for return," Dahlia pointed out. Alina drummed her fingers against the console, weighing the risk against her conscience. She'd sworn after Proxima never to leave anyone behind again. "Plot a course, Serena." "Marcus, run a full weapons check." "Dahlia, I need every ounce of power you can squeeze from the engines." The crew exchanged glances, but moved to follow her orders. They'd been with her long enough to know that once Alina Reeves made a decision, the universe itself would have to shift to change her mind. 5 hours into their journey, the Defiance began to experience the void zone's reputation firsthand. "Navigation's going crazy," reported Marcus, frustration evident in his voice. "Stellar positions don't match any chart, and our quantum compass is spinning like a drunk ballerina." Alina leaned forward in her captain's chair. "Old school, then." "Serena, can you still track the distress signal?" "Yes, but there's something else now. Multiple signatures approaching from our port side. They're big, Captain." Before Alina could respond, the ship shuddered violently. "What the hell was that?" she demanded. Dahlia's voice came over the comm, tense and hurried. Some kind of energy wave. It disrupted our shield harmonics for a second. I'm compensating, but if another hits, another impact, stronger than the first, cut her off. The lights on the bridge flickered. Bring us around, Elena ordered. I want visual on whatever's out there. The main view screen shifted to show the vast emptiness of space, then filled with the imposing silhouette of a massive vessel. Unlike the functional, utilitarian designs favored by human ships, this one featured sweeping organic curves and pulsing bioluminescent patterns across its hull. Following behind it were two smaller vessels of similar design. That's not the source of the distress call, Serena said quietly. No, Elena agreed, but I'd bet my last credit they know something about it. Hail them. Marcus worked his console. No response, Captain. Wait. They're scanning us. Intense energy readings. They're powering weapons. Evasive maneuvers, Elena shouted, just as a beam of shimmering energy lanced toward them. The Defiance lurched sideways, barely avoiding the full impact of the beam. Even the glancing blow they received was enough to send cascading failures through their power grid. We can't take another hit like that, Dahlia reported, her voice steady despite the chaos. Their technology is way beyond ours. Who the hell are they? Elena demanded. Serena worked frantically at her station. I'm picking up communications between their ships. The translator is struggling, but I'm getting fragments. They're calling themselves Thraxi, something about containment, and specimens. The alien vessels were maneuvering to surround them, cutting off escape routes. Captain, Marcus said grimly, we have maybe 30 seconds before they have us locked down. Elena's mind raced through options. The Defiance couldn't outgun these vessels, and they couldn't outrun them in open space. Dahlia, she said into the comm, remember that modification you made to our jump drive. The one I told you was probably illegal and definitely dangerous. There was a pause before Dahlia responded. The one that could tear us apart. Yes, I remember. Can it get us past those ships and deeper into the void zone? Theoretically, but I give us a 50-50 chance of becoming atomized space dust. Another energy beam sliced through space nearby, closer this time. Better odds than we have staying here. Do it. Warnings blared across every console as Dahlia rerouted power to the experimental drive. The lights dimmed to emergency levels, and the ship's hull groaned in protest. Everyone hold on to something, Elena shouted, gripping her chair as the Defiance lurched forward. For a moment, reality itself seemed to bend around them. The view screen showed impossible colors and twisted geometries as they shot through a hole in space that shouldn't have existed. Elena felt a pressure in her head, like her thoughts were being squeezed through a sieve. Then suddenly, they were through, still intact, with the Thraxi vessels nowhere in sight. The bridge was silent except for the steady beeping of system warnings. Status report, Elena managed, fighting back a wave of nausea. We're alive, Marcus replied, sounding surprised. Engines at 40%, weapons at minimal capacity. But we've gained significant distance from those vessels. And we're much closer to the distress signal, Serena added. Maybe an hour away now. Elena nodded slowly, processing their situation. They were damaged in uncharted space, being hunted by advanced alien vessels, and heading toward an unknown distress call that might well be a trap. Just another day for the crew of the Defiance. Captain, Serena said, her voice suddenly quiet. I've cleaned up some of the Thraxi communications we intercepted. They're prison transports. Whatever is sending that distress signal, they're holding it captive. Elena's expression hardened. She'd seen enough prison transports during the corporate wars to know what that meant. Suffering, exploitation, and often worse. Marcus, what's our weapons status? He looked up, surprised. You can't be serious. We barely escaped with our lives, and you want to take on those ships? Not the ships, Elena clarified. But if there's a facility where they're keeping prisoners, we might have options. "We're not exactly a rescue operation," Dahlia said over the comm. "We're 7 people on a ship held together by prayer and patch jobs." Elena stood up, her mind made up. "Before we were smugglers, before we were even soldiers, we were humans. And humans don't leave people to suffer when we can do something about it." She walked to the main view screen, staring into the strange, shifting emptiness of the void zone. "Plot a course to that distress signal. I want options for a covered approach. If these Thraxi want prisoners so badly, I think it's time they learned why humans have a reputation for being exceptionally difficult to contain." The bridge came alive with renewed purpose, calculations being made and systems rerouted to prepare for what might be their most foolhardy mission yet. Elena watched her crew work with pride. They might not be the heroes the galaxy wanted, but sometimes they were exactly the heroes it needed. As the Defiance pushed deeper into the void zone, Elena had no way of knowing that their actions today would change the balance of power across 3 galaxies, or that the specimens they were about to rescue would become humanity's most powerful allies in the war that was coming. All she knew was that someone needed help, and that was enough. Breaking chains. The Thraxi prison station hung in space like a malevolent spider, its dark metallic limbs extending outward from a central hub that pulsed with the same bioluminescent energy they'd seen on the ships. From their hiding position behind a nearby asteroid cluster, the Defiance had a clear view of the facility, and the half-dozen Thraxi vessels patrolling its perimeter. "That's not what I was expecting," Marcus admitted, staring at the tactical display. "I was thinking more along the lines of a small outpost, not a full military installation." Elena studied the holographic projection with narrowed eyes. "Serena, any sign of defensive systems beyond the patrol ships?" "Multiple energy signatures consistent with weapon emplacements. There's also some kind of energy field surrounding the central section, likely where they're keeping the prisoners. So, impossible odds, unknown alien technology, and a heavily guarded facility," Dahlia summarized over the comm. "Just checking that we're all on the same page." Elena smiled grimly. "Would you have it any other way?" The comm crackled as their newest crew member joined the conversation. "Captain, if I may offer a suggestion." "Go ahead, Vex." Dr. Vex Koran had joined the Defiance 6 months ago, a refugee from the Arcturian purges. His species, the Silvari, resembled tall, lean humans with silvery skin and eyes that reflected light like a cat's. Their natural affinity for engineering had made Vex an invaluable addition to Dahlia's team. The Thraxi vessels appear to utilize a quantum frequency communication system, similar to one my people encountered in the Deneb sector. If we can isolate their carrier wave, we might be able to transmit false orders or create a convincing distraction. Elena glanced at Serena. "Is that possible?" "With Vex's help, maybe. But we'd need to get closer, much closer. And even if we create a distraction," Marcus pointed out, "we still need a way inside. I doubt they leave the front door unlocked." Elena's gaze shifted to the final member of her core crew. "That's where Ash comes in." Ash, no last name, at least none they'd shared, sat quietly in the corner of the bridge. Their features were unremarkable in a way that was almost deliberate, easily forgettable, unless you knew what to look for. The subtle signs of extensive genetic modification. Before joining the Defiance, Ash had worked as an infiltration specialist for organizations whose names never appeared in official records. "You want me to walk into an alien prison station?" Ash asked, their voice perfectly neutral. "I want you to help us all walk into an alien prison station," Elena corrected, "once Vex and Serena create our distraction." Ash nodded once, as if breaking into unknown alien facilities was a perfectly reasonable request. "I'll need samples of their technology, and 15 minutes. Elena turned back to the tactical display. "Then let's start by acquiring a sample. Marcus, ready the shuttle. We're going hunting." 3 hours later, Elena found herself crawling through maintenance ducts that were definitely not designed for human anatomy. Ahead of her, Ash moved with preternatural grace, their body seeming to adapt to the cramped spaces. Behind her, Marcus whispered a steady stream of creative profanity as he squeezed his broader frame through the narrow passages. Their hunting expedition had been successful, if one counted success as barely escaping with their lives after ambushing a small Thraxi scout vessel. But they'd gotten what they needed: access codes extracted from the ship's systems, and enough understanding of Thraxi biology to allow Ash to work their particular brand of infiltration magic. Now, disguised with a combination of holographic projectors and bioactive polymers, the three of them resembled junior members of the Thraxi species, tall, insectoid beings with iridescent exoskeletons and 4 upper limbs. The disguises wouldn't hold up to close inspection, but combined with the distraction Vex and Serena were orchestrating from the Defiance, it might just be enough. "We're approaching the central containment section," Ash whispered, their voice modulated to sound more like the chittering communications they'd intercepted. "Security increases beyond this point." As if to emphasize their warning, a patrol of 4 heavily armed Thraxi guards marched beneath the grate they were passing over. Elena held her breath until they passed. "The distraction should begin in approximately 2 minutes, Marcus reminded them, checking a small device strapped to his wrist. "When the alarms sound, security protocols dictate all personnel report to defensive stations." "How convenient of them to be so predictable," Elena muttered. Ash paused at an intersection of ducts. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy readings ahead. Similar to the distress signal, but more complex." Before Elena could respond, the station's alarm system blared to life. Red emergency lighting flooded the ducts, and the sound of running feet echoed through the metal walls. "That's our cue," Elena said. "Lead the way, Ash." They emerged from the ducts into a dimly lit corridor. Following Ash's lead, they moved quickly toward a set of massive doors at the far end. 2 guards remained stationed there despite the alarms. Clearly, whatever was inside was too valuable to leave unprotected even during an emergency. "Stick to the plan," Elena whispered as they approached. "Marcus, you're up." Marcus stepped forward, his disguise making him appear as the highest ranking of their group. He barked out a series of commands in the Thraxi language, phrases they'd carefully practiced after studying the intercepted communications. The guards hesitated, then one touched a control panel. The massive doors slid open, revealing a vast chamber beyond. What Elena saw inside stopped her cold. The chamber was filled with transparent containment cells, each holding a being unlike any she'd encountered before. They appeared almost ethereal, humanoid in general shape, but their skin seemed to shimmer between states, sometimes solid, sometimes translucent like living crystal. Within their bodies, patterns of energy flowed and pulsed in hypnotic rhythms. "My God," she breathed. "What are they?" "The Nerith," came a voice from the nearest cell. The being inside watched them with eyes that sparkled like stars. "And you are not Thraxi, despite your appearance." Elena glanced at Ash, who nodded slightly, confirming that their disguises were still intact to normal perception. "How did you?" she began. "We see beyond the physical," the being explained. "Your energy patterns are distinctly human. We have studied your kind from afar." Marcus was already working on the control panel, trying to decipher the locking mechanism. "Captain, whatever we're doing, we need to do it fast. That distraction won't hold forever." Elena approached the cell of the being who had spoken. "We received your distress signal. We're here to help." The Nerith's features shifted into what might have been a smile. Bold, impulsive, compassionate. Yes, very human traits. "I am Irina, speaker for the Nerith Collective. We have been held here for what you would measure as 17 of your years. Why? What do the Thraxi want with you?" Irine's internal light patterns pulsed more rapidly. "We possess abilities that they wish to weaponize. The Nerith can manipulate energy at its fundamental level, including the energy of spacetime itself. It is how we sent our distress call beyond the barriers of the Void Zone." A sudden explosion rocked the station, nearly throwing Elena off her feet. "That wasn't part of our distraction," Marcus said grimly, still working on the controls. Ash pressed their hand against a nearby wall, their enhanced senses gathering information. The Thraxi realized the distraction was false. They're returning to the station, and they're angry. "Marcus?" Elena prompted. "Almost. Got it." The control panel flashed, and the transparent barriers of the cells began to retract. Elena turned back to Irene. "How many of your people are here?" 27. But many are weakened from the Thraxi experiments. "Can you travel?" "We have a ship, but it's small." Irene's form shimmered. "We do not require the same accommodations as physical beings like yourself. Space is negotiable for us." Another explosion, closer this time, sent tremors through the floor. "We need to move," Elena said, helping Irene from the cell. Around them, the other Nerith were emerging, their crystalline forms creating a kaleidoscope of light effects in the chamber. Ash was at the main door, their disguise beginning to flicker as the holographic projectors struggled to maintain integrity. "Captain, we have company coming. Many of them." Elena drew her pulse pistol, a pitiful weapon against what they were likely to face, but better than nothing. "Options. There is another way," Irene said, floating closer. "With your permission, Speaker Reeves, we could join temporarily with your consciousness, guide you through spaces the Thraxi cannot follow." Elena hesitated only briefly. "Do it." The sensation was unlike anything she'd experienced, like her mind was suddenly expanding beyond the confines of her skull, connecting to a vast network of consciousness. Through this connection, she suddenly perceived rather than saw alternate pathways through the station, quantum possibilities that existed alongside physical reality. "This way," she said with newfound certainty, pointing to what appeared to be a solid wall. "Everyone, follow close." Marcus looked skeptical, but years of following Elena's leadership had taught him to trust her instincts. "If you say so, Captain." As they approached the wall, Elena felt Irene's consciousness guiding her. With a gesture that seemed to come naturally, she shifted something in the structure of reality around them. The wall rippled like water, and suddenly they were passing through it, not by physical means, but by temporarily existing in a parallel probability state where the wall had never been built. "Holy shit," Marcus whispered as they emerged into a maintenance bay on the other side. "The shuttle bay is 3 levels down," Ash reported, their disguise now completely failed. Elena nodded, still connected to the Nerith collective consciousness. "I can see it. Not just the bay, but all possible routes to it." They moved through the station like ghosts, passing between spaces in ways that defied conventional physics. Twice they encountered Thraxi patrols, but each time, Irene and the other Nerith guided them into probability states where the encounter never occurred. When they finally reached the shuttle bay, they found it in chaos. The Thraxi were preparing for battle, loading weapons and boarding vessels. "They've detected the Defiance," Elena realized with dread. "They're launching an assault." Irene's form pulsed with concern. "Your vessel cannot withstand their weapons." "Then we need to give them a fighting chance." Elena turned to Marcus. "Those fuel cells, can you rig them to overload?" He grinned, already moving toward the storage containers. "With pleasure, Captain." While Marcus worked, Elena contacted the Defiance using a secure channel built into her combat suit. "Dahlia, we have the prisoners, and we're in the shuttle bay. Be ready to extract us, but watch for company. They're launching ships." "Already dealing with them," came Dahlia's terse reply, the sound of alerts blaring in the background. "Vex rerouted power to the experimental shields, but we can't hold them off for long. We'll create a diversion. Just be ready to swoop in when things get hot." "Things aren't hot already?" Dahlia asked incredulously. Elena smiled despite the situation. "Not yet, but they will be." Marcus returned, breathing heavily. "Charges set. We've got 3 minutes before this place becomes significantly more exciting." Perfect. Now we just need. Her words were cut off as the bay doors slid open, revealing a contingent of heavily armed Thraxi warriors led by a larger specimen with ornate markings on its exoskeleton. "The station commander," whispered Ash. The Thraxi commander stepped forward, its multiple eyes fixed on Alina. When it spoke, the translation software in her combat suit rendered its chittering speech into English. "Human intruders, you meddle in affairs beyond your understanding. The specimens are property of the Thraxi Empire, assets too valuable for primitive beings to comprehend." Alina stood her ground, feeling the unified presence of the Nerith bolstering her courage. "They're not specimens, they're people, and they're leaving with us." The commander's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "You have no means of escape. Your vessel will be destroyed. You will become subjects for study, like the energy beings you foolishly attempted to steal." "About that," Alina said, checking her timepiece, "you might want to duck." The explosion that followed was spectacular, far more powerful than Marcus had predicted. The fuel cells detonated in a chain reaction that tore through the shuttle bay, rupturing the hull and creating explosive decompression. In that moment of chaos, Arane and the other Nerith acted. Their crystalline forms glowed with brilliant light as they created a protective energy field around Alina and her crew, preserving air and shielding them from both the explosion and the vacuum of space. Through the gaping hole in the station's hull, Alina could see the Defiant approaching, weaving through Thraxi vessels with a grace that belied its cobbled-together nature. "Now that," she said, watching a Thraxi ship spin out of control after a precise hit from the Defiance's weapons, "is some damned fine piloting." The Nerith expanded their energy field, creating a bridge of sorts between the ruined shuttle bay and the approaching ship. Within this protective bubble, Alina and her crew began to move through open space, literally walking from the station to their vessel. Behind them, secondary explosions ripped through the Thraxi station as systems failed catastrophically. The patrol ships broke off their attack on the Defiance, rushing back to evacuate their own personnel. As they reached the airlock of the Defiance, Alina turned back for one last look at the station, now listing badly, its once menacing profile reduced to a fire-streaked hulk. For a prison break, Marcus commented beside her, "That went surprisingly well." Alina smiled. The day's not over yet. On the bridge of the Defiance, Alina watched as the Nerith integrated themselves with the ship's systems. Their crystalline forms had dispersed into patterns of pure energy, flowing through conduits and interfaces with ease. "The damage to your engines is extensive," Arane communicated directly into Alina's mind, their consciousness still partially linked. "But we can compensate by stabilizing the quantum fluctuations in your drive core." True to their word, the ship's power readings began to stabilize, then increase beyond their normal parameters. "Captain," Serena called out, her voice tinged with amazement. 3 Thraxi battlecruisers just entered the system. They're on an intercept course. Alina exchanged a glance with Arane, whose form had partially reconstituted beside her. "Can you get us out of here?" she asked. "Better," Arane replied. "We can show you ways to travel that the Thraxi cannot follow. Paths through the fabric of space-time that only the Nerith have mastered. Will my ship survive it?" Arane's light patterns shifted in what Alina had come to recognize as their equivalent of a smile. "With modifications, yes. Your vessel is crude by some standards, but its creativity of design offers unique advantages." Alina turned to her crew. "You heard the energy being. Strap in and prepare for whatever the hell is about to happen." As the Thraxi vessels closed in, weapons charging, the Defiance began to shimmer with prismatic light. The Nerith's energy suffused every system, every molecule of the ship. "Captain," reported Marcus from Tactical, "the Thraxi are hailing us. They're demanding we surrender the specimens or be destroyed." Alina settled into her captain's chair, a familiar calm washing over her, the calm that always came in the moments before a decisive action. Send them a message, Marcus. What should it say? Elena smiled. Tell them humanity has entered the game, and we don't play by their rules. The Defiance vanished in a burst of multicolored light, just as the Thraxi weapons fired, their energy beams passing harmlessly through the space where the ship had been moments before. The universe blurred around them as the Nerith guided the Defiance through layers of reality that human science had barely theorized about. When they emerged, the stars themselves looked different, rearranged into unfamiliar patterns. Where are we? Elena asked, staring at the view screen in wonder. Safe, Arene answered. Beyond the reach of the Thraxi for now. We have much to discuss, Captain Reeves, about the war that is coming and the role your species will play in it. Elena looked around at her crew, tired, battered, but alive and victorious against impossible odds. Then she looked at their new allies, beings of pure energy with knowledge and abilities beyond human understanding. I think, she said with a growing smile, this is the beginning of a beautiful partnership. Behind them, across dimensions the Thraxi couldn't perceive, a new chapter in galactic history was already being written, one where humanity's defiance would echo across the stars.